Hi, everybody. So this is going to be the Valentine's Cookie Class to Go tutorial. And I'm going to show you everything that should be in your box whenever you get it at home. We'll go through decorating the cookies and you'll be able to eat your delicious creations after you're done. So in your cookie box, you obviously will get your cookies. So you should have 2 of each of these cookies, the lips, the X, the O, the little heart, and a flower. Kind of hard to pick up. And then you have 2 of the rectangles. You should have, so 2 of these. So each of you will get 6 cookies. And they should all be the same. Then you should have some sprinkles. So you have a container of clear sanding sugar, a container of red sanding sugar, and a container of kind of a mix. It's like pink, red, and clear sanding sugar. And it has a little bit of silver in it too. So we're going to use those for the hearts. And you should have a plate. This is just a paper plate. That was in your kit. You should have a couple toothpicks. We'll need those later. Your icing, you should have 3 bags of icing, a pink, a red, and a white. And then you should have a center for your flower. And this is on a piece of parchment paper. This we're going to basically peel off and stick on. If it has already come off the parchment paper, don't worry about it. A few things that you'll need to help you that aren't included in your box are a pair of scissors. Doesn't matter what kind of scissors, just a pair of pretty sharp scissors, I guess I should say. Don't have a dull pair. And then you'll need some sort of knife, whether that's like just a butter knife or if you have like a little spatula. We're going to use this to spread on the icing on the cookies. So let's take a look at the cookies that we're actually going to do. And I'm just going to set them on top of the bare cookies. So we have our O, we have our X, we have our lips, we have our sweet little heart. This is my favorite. And the little flower, so simple but so pretty. And the rectangle, which is a little hard to show this way, so it has to be sideways. So these are all fairly easy. You should be able to do them. We're going to start with cookies and work in a manner that we should be able to come back to some of the cookies and do a second step. Like I said, this one's my favorite one. This we're going to do a scrape underneath and then flood on top, which is super easy. And yeah, they're all going to be really easy and really fun. Okay, so let's get all this stuff out of the way. We are going to start with, and when you get your kit, take everything out of your kit and just kind of organize your area. That's what I'm doing right now. Just kind of moving some of the cookies off to the side so that they're not in my way constantly. You need to have a pretty big area. Oh, you know what else I forgot? You should have a paper towel in your box. So just a regular paper towel. You just need this for like wiping off the tips of your icing bags. Maybe if you use your toothpick for something, wiping that off. But that should be in your box also. So take everything out of your box and you need kind of a workspace. You need a little bit of a work area and you'll need a little space off to the side of your work area where you can put your decorated cookies so that nobody touches them, so that you don't stick your hand in them. I like to set my cookies in front of me, like way up at the top of me, so that I have there's no chance of me sticking my finger in them. If I have them off to the side, sometimes I tend to run my elbow through them, or maybe I might drag my fingers through them as I'm getting another cookie. So if you can, I tend to set things up to the top. I can't do that today because my computer's up there. So we're just going to be extra careful. But then you just kind of have all your other stuff kind of around you. It doesn't have to be all, organized, but you want to be able to reach it. So we're going to start with the lips. And we're starting with the lips because it is a 2-step cookie. So if you look at our lips, see how there's a division where the lips are divided. So we want to show that. In order to show that, we have to do like the top And then we have to come back later and do the bottom. We need to cut our bags. So if you'll get all of your piping bags, we're just going to take and we're going to cut them off. I like to put the seam. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. I like to put the seam down the middle and kind of flatten it out so that I can cut it. And you want to cut off about, I used to say like a pin length. So this is just a typical like click pin, So if you put that equal to your bag, you want to just cut off about as much as that pin is. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but that's a good starting point for you to know how much to cut off. And if you want to, you can practice, or you can take a look at how big your lines are as you cut your bags by just piping it on the cookie, because you can either wipe it off or you can just leave it on there. It's not going to hurt it at all. This is a pretty good line. Those are about the same, so that's good. And then I'm going to cut my white. As you go through, and like as I go through doing this class, I will cut my bags again, because while I like these, this one's a little small. While I like them, they are a little small, especially for flooding. So I will cut them a little bit bigger as we go along. But that's a pretty good line. It's about as like wide or as thick as that tip is. So you can see it's about that distance, or that width, I guess. And like I said, you're going to end up cutting them again because they are cut too small to flood with. So you will cut them again. So for our lips, you can either take your knife and scrape these off, or you can just leave them on there. I'm just going to scrape them off just so that you can make sure that you see the actual lip shape. But you wouldn't necessarily have to scrape it off because it's just icing. It's just more icing. So if you think about lips, I'm going to do the top first. I'm going to use the cookie that's the cutter basically to help me with this top part first. So I'm just going to go around the top part of the lips. Very voluptuous. And then instead of just going straight across, which you totally could do, I'm just going to give it a little bit of a dip in. So I'm just going to kind of come up towards the center of that lip and then come back down and then come across, so that it creates this like little indentation where it looks like our lips are kind of parted. And as soon as I get that outlined, I'm going to go in and flood it. Now with your outlines, you can start and stop wherever you want to. You do not have to do a continuous line. You want to stay on the inside of your cookie. See how I have a little bit of distance there? You definitely want to have some of that distance because it will help you in not overflowing over the side of your cookie. So I'm going in and I'm holding my bag a little differently than the way that I was holding it for the outlining. And I'm holding it a little differently because it's just easier for me to squeeze out icing. And I definitely want this part to go a little bit faster because I don't want the icing to be chunky. I want it to be nice and smooth. As you guys can see, the glaze loves to go smooth as long as you get enough in there. Don't be skimpy with the icing. You want to get it all in there. The more icing you get in there, the smoother it will be. And really, you shouldn't have to do anything else other than that. If you want to take your toothpick and you want to kind of pull out the corners to make them maybe a little bit sharper, a little bit more crisp, you definitely can. But other than that, you really shouldn't have to do anything to this cookie after you flood it, as long as you get enough icing in there. If you don't get enough icing in there, it will look a little wavy. It will look a little bumpy. So we're going to set this cookie off to the side. We're going to let it dry for, half an hour, maybe a little bit less, but half an hour is always a good time frame for me when I'm waiting to do the next step. Okay. So we're going to set that off to the side. I'm going to try really hard not to put my finger in it. And the next one we're going to do is we're going to actually work on this heart cookie. but we're going to do a first step and then we'll come back to it later because we do need that to dry a little bit. We have all of our bags cut, and on this cookie, back behind, these hearts are three-dimensional. I don't know if you can see them, but they're sunken down in there. So in order to create that background, we have to spread some icing onto our cookie. So I'm going to just take my bags of icing and I'm just going to spread on the colors however you want to. Notice I'm not getting like a whole lot of icing in there. I'm just kind of spreading it on there. And I'm not going all the way to the edge of the cookie because I'm going to end up having to come back. Or not end up having to come back. I'm going to have to be careful not to spread it to the edge because I want the white to show on the edge. So now you're going to take your knife, and if you have a rubber spatula that's the size of this, like a rubber spatula, or if you happen to have a spreader like I have, you can definitely do this in one foul swoop. You can just take it and run it straight across, and it works out really nice. But I know not everybody has those. So instead of using the curved part of my knife, I'm going to use the back edge because it's straight. So I'm going to kind of scoot this back a little bit. Not anything crazy. But then I'm just going to take my knife, and it's kind of, you have to hold onto the cookie, but don't push too hard because you can also crack your cookie. And you just run your knife along the edge of the icing. Okay. And you're just spreading it in there. If you wanted to put a little bit of, let's put a little bit of red in there, and let's put a little bit more white in this area here. I'm going to wipe off my knife. And then you can use that flat edge again to just do that part. And let's go ahead and give it a little bit of texture. You can definitely hold on to your cookie. However you can hold on to it, that's what you want to do. Nothing too perfect. We're just going for kind of that tie-dye marble look, but trying to stay in the center of the cookie. I'm trying to avoid getting anything around the edge. If you get it on the edge or you get it too far over, just take that knife and kind of scrape it off. Or you could take your toothpick and just scrape it off. So if you get a little too close, just take that and scrape it off. But after that, we want this to dry. And it really doesn't take that long, maybe a couple minutes. So we're going to let this dry. What that'll do is it'll allow our hearts to not meld into this bottom layer. It'll just give it some definition. So we're going to set that off to the side also. And we're going to work on our flower. So we're going to take our little flower here. And it doesn't matter what color you do your flower. If you wanted to do your flower in a different color, not just pink, if you wanted to do it in red, you definitely could. On the flower, this is probably one of those that I'm actually not going to use the cutter to help me. I'm not going to outline the cutter in the shape of the cutter, if that makes sense. I'm not going to outline it using the cutter. These are each a petal. I'm not going to outline it by just running my icing around here. So you have to kind of think about, if I had a middle, where would that middle be? Probably about right there, right? So I just put a little dot of icing, and this just helps me to keep my petals kind of equal, okay? So I'm going to make petals on 3 of the petals. I'm going to actually ice 3 of the petals, then we'll come back and ice the other 3. And really, this one doesn't really matter because our petals don't really touch. But I just kind of like to err on the side of, if that happens to you, if your icing bag just kind of spits at you because it had an air bubble in it, just pull off anything that fell off. Just kind of scrape it off and keep going. It happens to us all. And a few little pointers. I'm sorry I didn't say this at the beginning. When you're outlining, if you hold your bag up a little ways, you definitely have more control over it. So don't keep your piping bag down on your cookie, that does not help you with control. It just doesn't. So keep your tip up. Now, when you're flooding, it's a totally different story. You want the tip down, and notice, like I said, I hold my bag a little different, so I can squeeze this icing in there, and I can get it going into those petals, so I don't have to wait. And you'll see later why, when we're doing the letters, the X and the O, we need to go fast with flooding. And you can save the X and the O for last, and then you can cut your red open if you want to. So that's an option, but the other way is just to I just kind of take a little bit, and I'm able to squeeze a little bit faster because I've got more bulk in this little bitty area instead of me trying to hold on to it back here. All right. So we've got that pretty little flower. Again, one of those, we're just going to do it and then set it to the side. Grab a drink. All right. Now we get to do sprinkles. Woohoo! So we're going to work on our little rectangle with our heart. So I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. So this is a rectangle that you have, and you can do as many hearts as you want to on this rectangle. My example was almost like a chain. So I had 3 hearts with a little loop, but you could do 4 hearts if you wanted to. And you could just do 4 hearts or 3 hearts and just do them a little bit bigger. It's totally up to you. It's just a fun sprinkle. You could do all sorts of different sized hearts, all sorts of different sized sprinkles on this cookie. So there's lots of different options that you could do. It's super easy. All I'm doing is making a heart, putting sprinkles on it, making a heart, putting sprinkles on it, making a heart, putting sprinkles on it. And I find that doing hearts is a lot easier if you just freehand it, because you can always add more. So I'm going to start with my red sprinkles. And I'm going to, instead of make it look like a chain, I think I'm going to try to do maybe 4 hearts on this instead of 3. So I will take, and I am going to do a heart like this. Now, you can draw on the heart like this, and you can see that my heart is not perfect. It is smaller on this side than it is on this side. If I wanted to work that out, I could just take my icing bag and pipe it and kind of play with that line. But remember, you're putting sprinkles on this, so really your hearts don't need to be perfect. They just need to look like hearts, right? And I will say one way to make hearts look like hearts with sprinkles is make your dip there at the top. Let me finish flooding this. Make this dip at the top come down quite a ways. If you don't make that come down quite a ways, then you will have a more flattened out heart. So then you just dump on your sprinkles, and then I'm just going to tap them off, and we have 1 heart. And then make sure you put your sprinkles back into your container so that unless you want to mix them all together, I wanted to keep them separate. So I'm going to clean up my plate, and now I'm going to work with the pink, and I'm going to work with this set of sprinkles. I don't know if I'm going to be able to fit 4 in here. If you make your heart smaller, you can obviously fit 4. I don't think I'm going to be able to. I'm going to try to keep them all the same size. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and go in with this icing. I am just going to move this over just a little bit, just because it's just a little bit to move over. If you have a lot of space, don't do that. Just go ahead and pipe some more icing in there, but that was just a little tiny space. Now, these sprinkles are bigger, so you can see that that dip down didn't quite work out like I wanted it to. So the nice thing about once you put sprinkles on the icing, you can move it around with your toothpick. So that's super nice. You can mold your hearts, the way that you want to. Super cute. All right, clean off your plate. I also tend to put my lids on because I tend to spill sprinkles everywhere. It just happens. It happens to the best of us. So now I'm going to get my white sprinkles or my clear, and I'm going to do another heart. But again, I'm going to try to make that dip down in the middle of the heart, go down quite a ways so that the sprinkles don't stick to each other. So you can see I pulled that down quite a ways. So now I'm going to go through and flood this. You can always come back afterwards and put some dots in between them to look like, just to kind of fancy it up. You could put some dots around the whole cookie if you wanted to. Oh, that one's a cute one. Yay. I love making hearts. So now if you wanted to be careful with your plates too, because sometimes they pop and then your sprinkles go everywhere. I mean, everywhere. All right. And you can use sprinkles on any other cookies. You guys know that. I'm just showing you how to do these. You can make it more creative. You can use different things if you want to. You don't have to do exactly what I do. This is just ideas. So if you wanted to, you could definitely go through now and you could put some dots in the middle of your, in the middle of your hearts. If you wanted to, you could even put some dots around the cookies, around the part of the cookie. Let me back out again so that you can see the whole thing. If you want to put dots right next to each other, wait, give it, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and then come back and you can put, and you can put another dot right next to it without it melding into itself. Because if I put a dot right next to this dot right now, it will just combine and it will look like almost like a Nutter Butter. It'll look like a 8. So if you want to add more dots, I would say wait until those have set up a little bit, and then you can come back and put more on. But that cookie's super cute. Again, you could do all sorts of different sized hearts all over the cookie. That would be really, really cute with all the sprinkles. So cute. All right, so now let's talk about our X and our O's. These are super easy. Super, super easy. And probably one of my favorites. So we really don't need any more red, except for I did make red polka dots on this heart. So you can see here the finished product. I had some red polka dots. So I don't really want to cut my bag too much bigger, but I do need to cut it a little bit bigger because of the fact that we're going to be flooding these cookies. So if you wanted to, you could wait and do the X and the O after a little while. Give it give yourself half an hour to go get a drink and whatever. And then you could come back and you could finish up some of the cookies that I'm going to show you here in a minute. And then you could do the red dots on the heart. I am going to cut my red bag just a little bit more because I'm going to need it for the X and the O to flood, because I do need them to be flooded a little quicker. The technique we're going to do is just the drag technique. I'm sure you've seen it multiple times. So you can see the drag technique is right in the middle of both of these cookies. So I'm going to flood the tops and the bottoms, and then I'll flood the middle so that gives me even more working time for this cookie. And I'm going to zoom in so that you're able to see it. So I'm going to outline. And if you cut your bag a little bit bigger, you need to give yourself even more space on that cookie. So you can see on here, I'm really trying to stay within that cookie and give it some room, because I know that this is going to push out a little bit when I start to flood it. Okay. So again, I'm going to flood the top. I'm going to flood the top all the way to the edge of the cookie, or to the edge of the outline. And then I'm going to do the same over here. And come in and fill in some of these spaces. All right, same thing here. I'm just going to come through and flood this bottom half because I'm not really doing anything to these. So it doesn't matter if they dry or set up because I'm not doing the drag technique there. If you wanted to do the drag technique, you just need to frost or like flood your cookie faster if you want to do it all over, which you totally can. Just have to make sure that you're outlining it or flooding a little bit faster than normal. All right, cookie's all done. So now I'm going to take and drop in some white lines, and you could drop in any color lines. Like you could do a little bit of pink if you wanted to as well. I think I'm going to stick with 3. And then I'm going to drag down the middle and up on both sides. So when I drag, I just take my toothpick and I'm just dragging along that top surface of the cookie. You don't want to go down deep. You don't want to just dig it and scrape it against your cookie. You're just going along that top surface of the icing. I am wiping off my toothpick each time. And that's your drag technique. That's it. It's super easy. And you can do it again with the O. And the same thing. If you wanted to try something new, you could definitely try something new with the drag technique. You could do it up and down instead of side to side. You could do hearts. That's just dropping in some dots. Let me show you how to do that one. I'll do that one. That one's a little different. If you wanted to do the same drag technique as I did, I just, again, would flood the top of the O and the bottom, and then come through and drop in your white lines and drag up and down. So that's what I did on the O that's in the example. But I'm going to show you how to do some hearts because it's Valentine's, and who doesn't want to try to do hearts? Plus, I feel like wet on wet is always fun. So it just takes a little while to get your cookies flooded. I think this is the biggest misconception sometimes about cookies is we see all the Instagram reels and TikToks of people flooding. I'm guilty of it too. I love making them. But you don't realize that those are sped up a lot. They are sped up a lot. So flooding is not as quick as you think it is. It takes some time. All right, so here's our O. And to make hearts, I'm just going to make some hearts along the side here. So you're going to drop in some pretty big dots. And you're going to drop them in, a spaced apart because if you think about a heart, it has a tail. So you're going to start at the top, same drag technique, just along the surface. We're going to stick it in the red because we want the red to drag down into that dot. So it's going to drag into that dot, then that's going to drag in, and then that's going to drag in. So this technique is all one thing. And you can fix it or maneuver it. If you wanted to do another dot, you definitely could. But that's how you do hearts. So if I wanted to do a few more up here, I can. I'm just going to start. Let's start up here. Start here, and we're just going to go through. This icing is set up a little bit. You can kind of see right here the ripples. That's okay. Just kind of take your toothpick or just your cookie and just kind of tap it. And it just kind of helps to smooth out. It just sometimes if it waits too long or if you've got air blowing on it, it will crust over, and that's okay. You just keep working with it, and then you can kind of tap it back into place. So here's our 2 letters. How cute, right? X and O. All right, so those cookies are done. If you wanted to, you could definitely do sprinkles on those if you wanted to, on like the corner of them. That's definitely an option. All right, let's go back to our lips. And I am going to flood with that pink again. So I'm just going to take my pink, and now I'm going to kind of do the opposite. So I'm just going to follow the cookie here. This is the bottom lip. Okay. Now I don't have to outline right up against here, but I do need to kind of give myself a little bit of a guide here so that I know where to flood and where not to flood. And so then I'm just going to go in and flood this second half. If you wanted to, you could put sprinkles on your lips. You could do polka dots if you wanted to. If you don't want your lips to be pink, you can make them be red. Totally up to you. Just going to go in and flood this. I'm going to go in and not use my toothpick. I'm just going to flood it in. And you can then use your toothpick to kind of pull it out to the corner if you wanted to. Pull this out to the corner so it's not so blobby. And then you're done. Oh, so pretty. Lips. Lips. That cookie is done. So set that off to the side and put it up to the top. Now let's talk about our flower. So our flower, we're going to do the same thing we just did. And like I said, my petals don't normally overlap. So you could definitely do these all 6 petals all at the same time. But I just kind of tend to give it a little bit of time just to make sure in case they do touch. This at least allows me to have that separation. Okay. And again, if you wanted to do some white petals, you could definitely do some white petals. If you wanted to make this a little bit more 3-dimensional, you could let this dry for, let's say a couple hours. Give it a couple hours, and then if you wanted to, you could come back in and do a second set of petals in between these petals. So if you wanted to, you could do a second set of petals. Where's my toothpick? There's a second set of petals in this area here. And if you just waited, like I said, like a couple hours, you could definitely do that. And you would have kind of a multi-dimensional cookie. Okay, so you have a little center that came in your kit. And this center, your center will be dry. I completely forgot that we needed to have this transfer. So mine is not dry. So I'm not going to try to put it on there, but I do want to tell you, you should just be able to pull this off like a sticker and place it down. So mine is wet, but just envision that I could just pull this off and I could just place it down. Okay. So that's what that is for. You don't need to put any icing underneath of it because that icing is still pretty wet. So you would put your middle down on your flower and your flower would be done. These cookies go quick. All right. So now our last one, this is our funnest one. At least I think it is. I think this is the funnest one. So with this one, we just need our white and red if you want to do red polka dots. So with this cookie, you can make your hearts however you want to. And if you need to, you can definitely use your toothpick to kind of scratch into there some hearts, or you can just go for it. And I'm just going to go for it. I am going to outline my cookie first. That way I can see where this whole, where it's all going to be. And I don't try to put hearts, kind of along the edge. And I'm going to do hearts that are kind of upside down. They're not all going to be the same direction. And I would say less is more. So that heart's going to be that way. I'm going to make this heart be over here. It's going to be a little bit thinner. Maybe I'll make this heart be upside down. And maybe this one. And maybe I can do just a tiny one down here. Okay. And once you get your hearts the way that you want them, and like I said, the bigger the hearts, the better you're going to see that background. And the less hearts that you have, the more that background is really going to pop because there's going to be white in between it. So now you're just going to go in and fill in this cookie. If you let this cookie set for several days on the counter, or, you know, if it sets for several days, the icing that is underneath of here will start to bleed through. So that is the one kind of not bad thing about these cookies, is anytime you do kind of a stained glass effect, that red and pink will start to bleed up through the white. It takes several days for that to happen, but just kind of be aware that that is how, you know, if you look at your cookie later, it will start to have bled up underneath, and that is how. Just the icing likes to come up from the bottom. So now you can take your toothpick if you want to, and you can kind of move your icing around. Maybe you need to make it, oh, sorry, my dog was barking. Just going to move it around. Yeah, and that's so cute. Oh, I love it. I love it. All right, so now I'm just going to put some dots on there. Polka dots are hard, so if you don't want to do this step, I totally understand. One little tip would be to use your toothpick to help you and just squeeze out some icing, and then you could place it down. All of the icing is going to have like a little Dairy Queen curl to it. So the more straight up and down that you can either do your toothpick or do your piping bag, the more likely that little tip is going to fall straight down into the icing. So I'm just going through and putting on some little red dots. So cute. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. I don't know if y'all can hear it on the video, but there's a helicopter flying over my house. We've had like 5 helicopters fly over the house today. I don't know what is going on, but we've had quite a few. All right, so lips, heart, the little stick. Let's put him over here. Oh, that's so loud. Holy cow. And our flower. I'm going to use our other flower, our original flower, since it has the middle on it and mine does not. So, but yes, aren't they so cute? I love them. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Please let me know if you have any questions. Also, please share what you guys do during your Valentine's class to go. Show me what you did. I'd love to see it. And thank you so much for your purchase. And I hope you guys enjoy. Happy Valentine's Day. And I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.